When you go to publish your book, you're going to see 7 boxes where you can enter in your 7 Kindle keywords. The thing about it is Amazon actually allows you 50 characters inside each box. So this leaves most authors with the question of, should I fill in as many keywords into that box until I reach my 50 limit, or should I just use the particular keyword phrase that I want? Now the problem about this is many authors were saying, oh, all 50. Others are saying, just say the keyword you want. So this left us kind of in the middle of, well, what do we do? Well, to answer that, we at Kindlepreneur did a full-blown experiment to prove the real answer and the best thing for authors to do in order to get their books indexed and ranking for the most Amazon keywords. But before I get into that, if you'd like to learn more about book marketing, as well as how you can increase your book's rankings, be sure to click the subscribe button and the little bell icon to the right so that you get notified when the next kind of video like this comes out on YouTube. And with that, let's begin. So, in order to conduct a legitimate experiment to be able to finally give us a definitive answer as to how to approach those 7 Kindle keyword boxes, we had over 121 authors submit their book to us to be able to use an experiment to get what you're going to find out. Now, if you would like to learn more about the experiment itself and all the steps we took, you can find that inside of my article, which is in the description below. Okay, so now that we know how we found this, let's go ahead and talk about 2 very important concepts, which I think will really help you to understand our findings. The first is indexing, and the second, rankings. Indexing is where Amazon acknowledges that your book should show up for the keyword that you want. So when somebody types in that keyword phrase into Amazon, you'll notice in the top left corner, it says there's a certain number of books that will show up. That means they have indexed that many books for that keyword phrase. So you could be number 432, or you could be number 291. The point is, you're at least showing up, and we call that indexing. All right, the second important phrase is rankings. You see, you could be ranking all the way at the bottom where nobody will find you for that keyword, or you could be ranking at the top where everybody who searches will at least see you. Now, rankings is a really important part to the equation for getting your book discovered. You see, we found that if your book ranks number 1 for a particular keyword, you can expect that 27% of all people that type that keyword in will click on your book. But if you rank number 2, it's 12, and then 9, and then 8, and 7, 6, and so forth. So if you get your book indexed for a particular keyword, but you're not at least in the top 10 or 20 or so, you're not going to benefit from it. So that's why we have indexing and rankings. Okay, now that we understand this concept, let's move into the things we learned from the experiment. All right, number 1, by filling more words into those boxes, you will index for more words and phrases. I mean, it kind of makes sense. If you put in just one word, you're probably going to not rank for more than one. I get that. But before everybody runs off and starts jumping in and putting as many words into it, hold on. We've got more things to learn from this experiment. All right, number 2, we found out that Amazon takes all the different combinations of the words you put inside of one of those boxes and they rearrange it and you index for all of those as well. So say, for example, your phrase that you put into your box is fantasy, mage, dragon, war. Then in this case, you'll rank for the single phrase fantasy, mage, dragon, war. You'll also rank for the two words together, fantasy, mage, dragon, war, mage, dragon, fantasy, war, fantasy. And then the 3 versions of like mage, dragon, war, fantasy, so forth. And then the 4 combinations of the words like dragon, mage, war, fantasy, dragon, and so forth. When it comes to search criteria, we call this a broad match instead of an exact phrase. In broad, it takes all the different variations as well as pluralizations and things like that, and you index for all of them. In exact, it would be where only the phrase you put in is exactly what you rank for. Okay, so to simplify what we just talked about, Amazon takes all the combinations of the words you put inside that box and they index you for those phrases. The third thing we learned was that by putting the same word more than once inside of those boxes, or your title or subtitle, does not help. We saw no indication that somebody would rank better or index better if they had it more often. But we also saw that overusing the word didn't hurt you either. And this is important because a lot of people know about this warning that Amazon gives about basically sternly telling people, don't do it. And in their words, they say, do not repeat words in the title, category, or description as they are already used to help readers find your book. So I'm just here to say that that's not like a stern warning. They're just translate that in your minds as like them kind of saying it doesn't help. Okay? All right. So it doesn't help and it doesn't hurt. So if you're thinking you should put more of the same word in there, just cut it out. Don't waste your space. All right, so in 1, 2, and 3, we found that you index for more things based off of the more words you put in. However, though, in number 4, we found out a really important thing. And that also means the more phrases you put inside that box, the lower your rankings will be. Basically, if you put more words into that box, you diminish your argument that you should show up for that particular phrase out of those others. All right, and the 5th thing that we learned was that if you have your keyword phrase in the title or subtitle, that you carry a lot more power than if it's just one of your 7 Kindle keywords. I mean, this kind of makes sense. Like, if somebody types in the title of a book, that should show up instead of some book that made that one of their keywords, right? So, okay, we basically verified common sense on that one. But it is important to know that if you're really thinking about a certain phrase, then really consider it in the title and subtitle. All right, the 6th and final thing that we learned was actually based off of 2 anomalies. There were 2 particular books that did not rank or were not affected by what they did. The first book was one that actually used some pretty heinous keywords. And I mean, we're not talking about like hot and steamy, but like heinous, okay? And go figure, but that book didn't rank for those. My guess on this is there are just certain phrases that Amazon just either A, doesn't even want to show anything for, but also there are certain phrases too that they just don't believe exist. So if you put in a whole bunch of stuff, gobbledygook, etc., it doesn't mean that they're just going to start indexing just you for it. And that kind of makes sense. The second book was actually even more important. In this case, the person didn't index for any of the phrases they put in there. When we looked at this and we actually talked to the author, we found out that they realized they'd put the wrong keywords. They had actually used keywords for a different book on this particular one. What I think is really important about this case is that Amazon looked at the content of the book, the title, the category that they chose, the book description, all of this other information. And then they looked at the keywords that the author put in. They realized there was just too many differences between the two. And so the person didn't index for any of it. This is incredible because you can't game the system by throwing in a random keyword and ruin Amazon's results. And if you really think about it, that makes sense. Okay, so now that we talked about the 6 things that we learned from it, what is an author to do? Should they use all 50 characters or should they just use the specific phrase they want? And the real answer to this is you should actually do both. Here's what I mean. If you've done proper keyword research, like using Publisher Rocket, you will know that certain phrases are really important. That particular phrase not only gets searches, but people are buying books and they have a good competition. If you know that that is the phrase you want, then do not put other words around it. Use 3 to 4 of the boxes and use those particular phrases inside of it. Now, once you've done the 3 to 4 boxes, use the rest of them to fill in with other words or phrases that are generally descriptive of what your book is about. So in this case, you are now specifically targeting the keywords you truly want while also broadening your indexing. This will give you the best maximum between indexing for more phrases, but also having strong rankings for the words you care about most. All right, I know that can feel a little bit complex, and if you'd like to read more about it, I've got an article in the description below. Just go ahead and click that, read through it, and then apply as you go. All right, I'm Dave Chesson of Kindlepreneur, hoping that you enjoyed this final answer to that question that's plagued so many authors in the past. Be sure to identify your target keywords and only put them in the box that you want, and then fill the rest with other good terms. Signing off. Cheers.